as I was saying, welcome to this year's competition. We're very excited about having your team here and to listen to your presentation. As I mentioned, we have a senior judge and several other judges who will listen intently to your presentation and be able to ask you some questions when you're completed. So before we get started, two things will happen. One is we'll do some introductions, and after the introductions, there's a brief paragraph that I'll read about the presentation, and then we can begin. So first thing is, I'd like to invite the judges and the team members to introduce themselves, but no one, including the judges, should mention their university or any relationship with LMU. This is a blind competition, so we don't want anyone to feel that it is anything other than that. So we'll start with the judges. My name is Bill Murin. I'm a retired healthcare executive. I currently serve on 3 boards and do some community service. And then I would turn to Brian Flynn. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Brian. I run a food company, a snack food company called Sun and Swell Foods. We make organic health food snacks for different places like corporate offices and hotels and universities. And the thing that's cool about what we do is all of the packaging is 100% compostable. So we're the only company in the US that offers a full assortment of grab and go snacks in 100% compostable packaging.
Great, thank you. Jeremy?
Yes, Jeremy Webb. I have an engineering background and an MBA in financial decision systems. I'm running my own consulting company after a career in project management.
Great, thank you. So would you please introduce the team, please?
So we even prepared a slide for this, but we can go in order. Barry, can you go first?
Please go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Valerie Fala. I am a student in environmental management.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Hemil Doshi. Mine is a bit similar to Jeremy in a way. I have an engineering background. I'm pursuing an MBA right now. I come from Mumbai in India, and I am going to be the technical consultant for the Kaah Kahh Consultant project that we have today. And my interests lie in sustainable farming practices and how we can infuse tech in agriculture to make farmers, help farmers better their lives in general. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, team. Thank you so much. My name is John Chetwin. I'm an applied economist. That's what I study currently right now. I own my own consulting firm. It's called Bridges and Barriers Advisory Service. And what we do is we help legacy businesses try to understand how they can use data systems and data processes to better understand their information so they can make more data-driven decisions. And in particular, like some concerns and interests that I have is in food security and farms growth, in particular in the African regions.
Welcome.
All right. My name is Saint Roger Bunchebe. I'm from Cameroon. I study applied economics, and I am interested in everything about farming, agri-tech, farming techniques, innovation in farming. I'm also a farmer, come from a farming family. So yes, that's about us.
Great. Welcome. Nice to have everyone here. I'm going to start by just reading a introductory remarks. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. You know, one clarification I wanted to make in the summary that we received, the audience was Orange Corporation. Do we assume that that is the board of directors of Orange Corporation, the role we should be playing? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, the teams will be uninterrupted. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. So we will stay in character as the board of directors. You will stay in character as the consultants. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside of our role playing. So we'll have a chance to step away from our role playing and give you any kind of feedback that may be helpful to you as you work your way through the competition. You'll have 25 minutes. At 2 minutes left, I'll put 2 fingers up like this and tell you you have 2 minutes left. So you're gonna have to close it off because at 25 minutes, we stop the presentation. All teams have the same criteria of 25 minutes. So before we get started, are there any questions from the judges or the participants at all?
None, and thank you so much for being so descriptive. And yeah, we'd like to get started when you can give us a
Okay.
permission.
Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Orange Board of Director. My name is Roger Bunchebe, consultant at Kaah Kahh Consulting. We are honored to share a proposal for partnership with Orange. Kaah Kahh Consulting is a firm that promotes sustainability to improve the life of farmers for green, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. Kaah Kahh means cocoa in one of the native language of Cameroon. Is the name we choose to remind us of our cause, which is cocoa. Cocoa is consumed everywhere in the world, but produced in few countries, among which Cameroon. Our team of young professionals, through its expertise, has acknowledged the suffering of cocoa farmers. And we also identified the market need for solution. Cocoa farmers in Cameroon suffer from the lack of information. Information such as market price, and that may lead to poverty. We propose a partnership with Orange to educate farmers and provide those key information they need for sustainable growth and higher returns. So here is a map of Cameroon. We border by Nigeria, Chad, Central Africa Republic, Gabon, Congo, and Guinea Equatorial. And I have to say, we are the main producer of cocoa in Central Africa. The other ones are in West Africa. So today, we already did an introduction, our team. So we're gonna jump to the, right after this, we're gonna jump to the concern that we found, the problem that we found. After that, present our solution. Then the tool that we use to implement our solution, and finally the impact of our solution. Done this. So Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roger, for this presentation and for introducing this discussion with Orange Cameroon. It is really a pleasure that we have this opportunity to meet with the board of directors of Orange to share this concern, which we feel, if handled properly, will change the lives of many. But what is this concern? The concern is cocoa farmers in Cameroon have a great ordeal. They go through a lot of suffering, and looking at their what cocoa, the value of cocoa in the world, we cannot reconcile the fact that these farmers are having this kind of living conditions. It is for this reason that we want to stress that our concern is to help these farmers to promote sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all cocoa farmers especially. And that is like being in line with SDG number 8, which is our primary concern. But before we get into this, we need to understand why this is a major problem. We need to understand the the reality of cocoa farmers. First of all, Cameroon is the 4th globally producing country of cocoa. In Africa, Cameroon is the 3rd in the production of cocoa. If we look through 2020 to 2023 right now, we see that Cameroon has been increasing in its production of cocoa. In 2020, Cameroon produced 292,000 metric tons of cocoa. And in 2023, Cameroon is already producing 300,000 metric tons of cocoa, which is a huge amount of cocoa from this country. But what is the, when we look at the pricing of cocoa, we also realize that though the price has not been stable from 2022 and now in 2023, there is an increase in cocoa pricing. What does that imply? That under normal circumstances, cocoa farmers should have real income to keep them out of poverty. The cost of cocoa right now is at $3,000, at least at $3,000 for a metric ton. But what is the reality that we find? We see that cocoa farmers are unable to meet up with their basic necessities. When we look at the income of cocoa farmers in general in Cameroon, which we can link with cash crop farmers, we see that over the years, and particularly in 2022, like this first image shows us, cocoa farmers have experienced a decrease in their income of over 50%. If we look at the second bar, we notice 27, that's for cash crop farmers, and cocoa is a cash crop. We see that cocoa farmers, 27% of cocoa farmers experience a huge loss in their income. 31% a minimal loss. 20% have just been able to keep to remain at a stable income. 6% notice an increase, reasonable increase in their income, and 15% mild increase in their income. But in general, what we get from these income changes of farmers in Cameroon is cash crop farmers have generally had a loss in their income. What does that imply to their living standards? It means the living conditions of cocoa farmers is below the poverty mark even. If we take just the produce, the income they gain from cocoa farming, and we have to sum it up with other sources of income, which they sometimes have to get into because they want to make a living. All of that income doesn't help them to meet up with a living income benchmark of an average person, an average working person. This gap, this income gap is always still there. They cannot meet up with unexpected events like health. They cannot have good food for their families. They cannot have decent housing, even clothes, and even mobile phones. They still use the very old types of mobile phones. They cannot have Android phones now. So the situation of cocoa farmers is really difficult, and it's unbearable to understand that cocoa, which is so valuable, has producers who are so poor. And this situation gets worse when we look at the working conditions of those in the cocoa farms. Most cocoa farms have so many children working in them because the cocoa farmers cannot send their children to school. They tend to take these children along with them to the farms. And in this way, there is so much child labor in Cameroon in the cocoa farming sector. Also, the working conditions are unbearable. They don't have good working tools, and the situation it is really unfair that these should be happening to cocoa farmers. When we take into consideration the climate change and deforestation which is going on, we project and see that in the future, things will not be better for them if nothing is done now. The image we have on the right, which shows temperature change in 2050, the image below tells us how hot Cameroon will be, and cocoa farming will not be possible. But we need to help them now to prevent such a situation. And that is why Kaah Kahh Consulting is interested in bringing a solution to cocoa farmers. But apart from that, when we look at the financial situation and the financial infrastructure that is around cocoa farming in Cameroon, we get to realize that cocoa farmers have a huge difficulty when it comes to selling their produce. They cannot go directly to exporters. They have to go through middlemen, and they have to go through cooperatives. Because they have to use these channels, they don't have the profits that they are supposed to have for their hard work. It is for these reasons that we Kaah Kahh Consulting, we are opting to cooperate with Orange Cameroon to see how to help these cocoa farmers out of these ordeals. And I'll leave it to Saint Roger to present to us the solutions that we've reflected on, which could be helpful to these cocoa farmers.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you for clearly stating the issue that we found in the cocoa farming industry in Cameroon. You talked about child labor, climate issues, and the finance struggle that farmers face. So our solution consists, as we mentioned, of a partnership with Orange Cameroon, the largest, we have to say, the largest telecommunication provider in Cameroon, to create a live dashboard and provide those metrics that will help them come out of poverty. So one of the first one is sustainable practices. Valerie mentioned how a lot of farmers, due to poverty, have to take their farm to farms, have to take their farm to their child to farm. But these are against sustainable practices. So we want to inform farmers of those sustainable practices that will help them increase their return, that will help them with long-term farming and also higher prices. In addition, those sustainable practices are important to get cocoa certification, which is another point in our solution. And as you can see, they are related. These cocoa certifications allow you to trade in the international sector, international market. So by providing that to them through text message, where they can get certification and what are the criteria for specific certification, we can continue our goal to help them towards financial prosperity. Another point in our solution is minimum support price. In order to bargain with buyer coming from the outside, we want to provide information on the actual price, the actual market price of cocoa by text message. So as a buyer come to this remote region to buy cocoa, the farmer now is aware of the international price and cannot get anything lower than that. This is key, as we've seen that firsthand, how sometimes farmers are not even aware of the actual market price. So the last point of our solution is farmer union. By negotiating as a group, they can demand for better price. They can also influence the international cocoa. We saw how much tons they produce. So for local buyer, we think that if they form union, they can influence the international market price. They can supply so they can supply cocoa as they want, and if they decide to limit oversupply, they can do that as well. They can sign long-term contracts, and basically giving them the opportunity to work as an association through this solution. So for this solution to work, first, as we already said, we want a partnership with Orange Cameroon, but it's also important for us to partner with some government agency in order to get those information about farming in Cameroon. And one organization that we identified that have all the information related to farming, cocoa farming, is the Cameroon Cocoa and Coffee Interprofessional Board. Okay, so I've presented our solution, and we believe it's feasible given the reality on ground. So by deciding to partner with Orange specifically, it was due to the background, the farmers' background. They live in poor region, they don't have access to phones. So how do we get to them? Through text message. They don't have access to smartphones. How do we get to them through text message? And then also we are aware of cocoa farmers' needs. They want to find buyers for their cocoa, whether it's international or locally. And then we also are aware of this our partner priority, which is increase their customer and their range. And our solution does not break any law. We stand on research as scholar. We stand on research, and we believe this is feasible in a decent amount of time. I would now pass the floor to Hamid so he can present to us how we implement our solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. So we talked a bit about the solution. Now, how do we deploy this? And what you see right in front of you right here is the Kaah Kahh Consulting dashboard, which we are going to present to Orange at first. But in the future scope of things, we believe that we would be also sending this to the farmers once they are capable of affording laptops and smartphones so that they can access this dashboard themselves. So what we see right here, if you look at the left top side of the dashboard, we see a live price counter. This provides the farmers and Orange right now to start with a live price of the current farming in the Cameroon region, which is the current sale price of the farmers. And farmers can leverage this so that they understand that these are the live prices that they're working with. And apart from it, we also see a minimum support price, which is the price that has been set by government, which is the lowest price. We don't want the farmers to sell that produce at a price that is lower than the minimum support price, because they could potentially gain more, and minimum would be the floor price, which is the minimum support price. Apart from this, we also see the price predictor, which we assign to the farmer in particular by looking at their neighborhood farmers, their farming practices, the climate conditions, and a lot of other factors that we as Kaah Kahh consultants determine that the farmers should sell their produce at. And so as we see, the price predictor is slightly higher in this case for Atangana, who is the farmer, as 2.75745. The farmer could sell it, at a discounted price, which would still be, at the live price, which we want them to sell it at, but we don't want them to go lower than the minimum support price. And we believe that if they use a price predictor, they can definitely earn more on their produce, because we have always given recommendations which are based on the farming practices near them. We also assign a competitive index score, as you see on the right side of it, which is based on the past history of the farmer, which is the sales that they've done, the amount of sales that they've done, and thus we provide them with a score so that they can track it as to whether they are doing better or worse. We also give them an average waste production, which is based on the average waste produced by farmers based on their sales amounts. And this is a good indicator for them to use this waste for other purposes and to also understand how much waste is being produced. On the left side, we see a total number of farmers section where this would be useful to Orange as well to start with, because they can see that this is the market that they are capitalizing on, which is the total number of farmers that is approximately 6,000. We have a live active subscriber count, which is the farmers that have subscribed to Orange. And thus this provides Orange an incentive to understand if it is increasing, because this is a loyal stream of customers that they'll be gaining. Apart from it, when we give this to the farmers, it is a good indicator for the farmers to see how many of their peers and colleagues have added on to this service. We also see a market share. My friend Roger touched a little bit upon the farmers' unions. We want the unions to grow. We want them to dictate the pricing. We want them to dictate the circumstances that they're in. And thus, we want a higher share of farmer unions. We are going to give them a market share, a live market share, so that they can see how many farmer unions are there, independent farmers and corporates. On the right side, we see Cameroon and international prices for cocoa, which is on Q1, 2, 3, and 4 basis. This helps the farmer to see where the cocoa pricings are right now and where it is going to go in the near future. And this helps them to sell it at a higher or lower price based on what the predictions and the current stats are. On the left side, we see a top buyers near you section, which is the top buyers in the farmer's vicinity. This gives them a one-stop shop for them to see who is the buyer that is interested in buying the produce right now. This would help them in selling the produce in a very easy manner and in a fast fashion. So it would be really helpful for the farmers if they could know what the buyers are who are looking for. We also see a graph that is an independent and middleman share. My friend Valerie just talked a little bit about middleman being an issue. We want the middleman issues to go down, middleman share to go down. And we believe that using this Kaah Kahh Consulting dashboard, slowly and steadily over the quarters, we'll see a reduction in the middleman share, and we'll see more of independent farming to go with. We also see a live climate counter on the right side of it. This would be giving the past, current, and future predictions for the climate conditions. And this would help the farmers better understand their climatic conditions and accordingly reap the benefits of the climate if they are good or bad. If you go on to the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the dashboard. We believe that farmers in the future would be able to afford the laptops and smartphones. And thus, we have created what you see right in front of you is a learning resource, a guide, a blog for them. We give them the latest sustainable practices. We give them the current pricing scenarios in terms of where the market trends are going. We give them learning resources on how they can get the certifications, which we've deemed it to be useful as we spoke earlier. And we can also see how the sustainable practices are evolving over time. And this would be just one resource for the farmers to go to in terms of their learnings. And there's nothing like this so far in Cameroon. So we definitely feel that this would be a wonderful addition to send in the future scope of things to the farmers. If you move on to the next slide, you'd be wondering, how do we convey these messages right now to the farmers? We have chosen Orange as our first partner and a partner of choice, and we shall be pushing SMS to the farmers. These SMSs shall be character limited, and these shall be tied to the live APIs which are coming from our dashboard. So all of the counters that you saw are going to be outputting from those APIs in the messaging services such as Twilio and others, and it would send it right to the farmers, where they have the current live pricing of cocoa, minimum support price, the climatic conditions, market shares, and different information based on the text character limits and what is, according to us, the priority for that scenario and that farmer. And we believe that this dashboard shall be a wonderful tool and a boon for not only the farmers in Cameroon, but overall in the world of cocoa farming in particular. And we feel that this would be really helpful in them earning more money. And with that, I would like to pass it to my friend John, who shall be speaking more on the impacts of the solution.
Thank you, Emil, for that. I appreciate that. I see the 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Bill. Don't worry, we'll close it out in that. So let's recap real quick, the farmers. How are we going to create an impact and how is this actually affecting them? Live price is going to help farmers understand how to negotiate prices better. The information on weather is going to make them more resistant to weather shocks, becoming more sustainable. The certification programs is going to provide increases in skill and knowledge to these individuals, allowing them to adopt these best practices. And sustainable practices blogs leads to information sharing so people can use the most up-to-date and equipped information for their specific geographical location. And as Hamil touched on, farmer unions advocate for policies that support their industry directly. So let's talk about how this impacts Orange. Excellent. Orange Company. Well, how is that actually going to affect you at Orange Company? As the board of directors, I think you probably understand that with an increased or with a growing population of rural people moving into these markets, it causes for expansions of network, investment in infrastructure and cell towers and things of this nature can happen. The information on weather and these types of things can help Orange County or Orange bolster their network ability to be able to provide this types of information. It is improved brand recognition. It allows them to be understood from new incoming individuals that their brand represents a sustainable solution, not only to farmers, but other people inside of that sub-demographic. And also it increases their customer base. Now, moving forward, how does this impact the local economy? With increased connectivity, opportunities for entrepreneurship, access to financial services like online banking and mobile apps, improve agricultural ability, and improve infrastructure will all bolster the local economy. And overall, as these rural populations grow and gaining access to cell phones in Cameroon, it will contribute to a sustained, inclusive, and sustainable growth, providing full and productive employment and decent work by promoting entrepreneurship, financial inclusion, and improving productivity in various sectors. This ultimately will allow us to lead us to the goal, which is promoting sustainable, inclusive economic growth and productivity and full employment for all farmers in Cameroon.
To reach your time. Thank you. Thank you very much. We now like to have the board ask some questions, and I will ask the first question. In looking at the presentation and listening to what you've identified, in the course of your research and development of the solution, did you identify any ethical issues with regard to what you're recommending?
I'm happy to take this one, guys. I think through our research and for what we found, we actually found that it actually empowered not only the farmers, but the Orange Company, because it was giving people access to information. Something that we deal with a lot in economics and we talk about is asymmetric information. And that's what we're trying to help these farmers out with. We feel like there's information about pricing, sustainable practices, and also access to markets that's being withheld from these farmers, and utilizing this solution will actually empower them and increase the viability for them to get real prices that we think they deserve.
And to add on to that, so summing it up, it would not have any ethical implications based on our solution. There's no ethical issues that we face. So yeah.
There is no harm to anyone?
No, not based on our research from our solution. There's absolutely no harm that it causes to anyone in terms of ethics. And so we are very confident and we are very proud, as John said, it would empower them.
Do you have a sense of the gap between the farmer's ability to actually use the information that you're suggesting today, to how long it would take actually to get to that point? I mean, is there a huge learning curve, technology that they would have to acquire? What's the gap time?
Okay, no, thank you. Good question. The way the information we provide are straightforward. So like we talk about prices, like international price. This is a number. So we believe farmer can utilize that right away. We talk about sustainable practices. It's a list. It's a list of things to do to get higher yields. We can talk about like replanting trees. It's not, I don't think it's too complicated for them to understand. So we believe this can be implemented right away and the farmers will pick up and move forward. Thank you.
It's great.
And to add to that, I would say knowing that Orange has a wide coverage and reaches many of these farmers, the turnout will definitely be in a very short term, because they will be able to tell these farmers the best practices and the realities about cocoa farming, which they themselves may not be aware. And definitely these farmers are eager to learn and to see that their cocoa brings them more income. They're eager for that. And I think we feel that is going to be a push for them to learn a lot. And in a short term, they should be able to get to where we are proposing with the help of the partnership with Orange Cameroon.
Yeah, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, great job. Really enjoyed the presentation. Can you guys help me understand a little bit more about where the data comes from? And is it like a crowdsourced sort of data, or is this a mandatory reporting from either the Nestle's who are buying or the farms? So just help me understand, like, how is the data collected currently? And if it resides somewhere, where is it residing now? And why is it so hard to get access to that data as of now?
Okay, I'll take that, guys. So I'll start from the beginning. It's hard for them to get that at the moment because, as we mentioned, they used small phones. I can go back to the slide. And so they use these phones. I don't know if you remember these phones where you don't even have access to internet. And in addition, they don't have access to internet. That's why we propose a partnership with Orange. Orange can send them text message though. So they have phones, they can receive text, but it's not those phones that that have high, that can do the other things. So the other point that you mentioned, where are the data coming from? Our solution proposed many points. For climate data, this resides online. So we can use Google Earth Engine, we can use that's online. So we really won't struggle with that one. But when it comes to the on-ground data, that's why I talked about a partnership with cocoa, with Cameroon Cocoa and Coffee Interprofessional Board. They hold most of the data related to farming, cocoa farming in Cameroon. And for sustainable practices, the UN have a charter on sustainable practices. So we aim to use those. We might need more partnership down the line for this to be fully, to have all the faces that we need. But as of now, the points that we mentioned, the partnership with Cocoa Coffee Interprofessional Board will help us send those data over.
Just to add something more, when we were coming up with this solution, we did not neglect our backgrounds. I think most of us, Saint Roger is an applied economist. John runs a consulting institution. Hamil is an expert in business. He does from business. And myself, I am from the environmentalist background. So when we were constructing this, we're also thinking of how we could work together to build up a team. And we shall source this information, and then we stock it up in the dashboard, and which Orange will be pushing it out to the farmers. So Orange will, we do the most of the background work in partnership with this governmental organization, which Roger just spoke about. And what we need Orange to do is, okay, since you have the contacts of the farmers, because for each farmer to have a phone in Cameroon, you need to register your name and you need to indicate your profession. So we think Orange already knows those who are farmers, those who are doing cocoa farming in Cameroon. So it will be easier for Orange to like push these messages to them because they know the particular group of people we are interested in. And in that way, we bring the information and Orange sends this information to them. Orange is going to notice an increase in subscription because when these farmers will share among themselves what is happening, definitely more people will come in and their network will become renowned and popular. So their brand name will be much more recognized.
So that's my question there, because you guys showed a version of the dashboard, which was really nice. It made it really easy to conceptualize. But what I'm wondering is, if we're going to have real-time pricing information, are we to rely upon the farmers or the buyers of the cocoa to self-report those prices as the transactions are occurring? Because I can tell you, when I buy, I don't deal directly with farms all the time, but sometimes I do. And when I do those transactions with my company, that's a private transaction. I can hammer them and say, hey, I want 20% lower than what you're offering me. I may or may not get that, and eventually I end up with a price, but I'm not self-reporting that price anywhere, right? That price stays in the company, and that's private knowledge to me, my company, and the supplier. And the supplier might go on tomorrow and do a different deal, or the farm might go on tomorrow and do a different deal with a different customer for a different price. So how are we to get that information into the dashboard? Are we to rely on everybody saying, hey, we want to give voluntarily our pricing that the deals that we've been doing, and we want to help input that into the system so that other farmers have it, sort of like a way of crowdsourcing it? Or is it already mandatory that those transactions are reported somewhere? Like, if you're a farmer, is it mandatory you report every transaction that's occurring? I'm just trying to understand, if we're going to have a dashboard relying on real-time data, and then we're going to need to, this is what is going to be hard about getting this going, right? We need that to be reliable data. So how are we to know that we will be getting enough data, either voluntarily or otherwise, into the dashboard so that we have reliable data for our users to push this out broadly?
Brian, I'm happy to answer that question. It's something I deal with actually quite a bit. So I think it's multiple answers to your question, but I think first and foremost, we have multiple sources of data. You're totally right. Self-reporting is a hard piece, and we'd love to get some live action data from the field to get that self-reporting. We also have commodity prices, and we also have multiple other markets that we can source that information from. And so I think a big one of our things is having multiple price inputs, so that way we can understand what the actual market's actually asking, as well as having attached APIs to direct live data traded in commodity markets that allows us to come up with the most accurate current price that farmers are probably going to be doing. And to your exact point, you're right. When you go to a local farm, or when you negotiate with the actual producers, you can haggle on the price a little bit more, and you can kind of dole them down. And that's why we wanted to actually give them that variety of live price information, so they can understand exactly where they fit, because demand changes quite regularly, right? So even though we might give you a live price, that might not actually be the current ground price that's happening. And so we're not necessarily saying that we're going to give you the exact price, but we're going to give you a rough estimate and information from multiple markets to allow that to happen through APIs, through self-claiming, and other sources of price information.
And to add on to that, there's a minimum support price, an MSP, that we attach on our dashboard. It's a price that is the lowest mark from the government. It has already been deployed. As we said, we come from different backgrounds. Where I come from, it has already been deployed. The MSP is the lowest we want to go. And we should also address the gaps that are in the market right now. There's a lot of black market that the farmers are selling it at in the bulk, bulk part of things, And with our dashboard, we aim to reduce those black market things. We also make them understand that how can you get the certifications? If putting it in perspective of how we all would understand it, if a diamond is GIA certified, there's a different price that it can fetch. And if a diamond is just a rough diamond, it is a different price it can fetch. It is the same with cocoa. And so we feel that what John just mentioned, with the minimum support price and what we believe from their neighborhood that we are targeting at as the price predictor, that the farmers have accurate and estimates on all of these different prices, because MSPs are accurate, the others are rough, but they give them a very good sense of where they are at and how they should move to the white side of things rather than the black market. Thank you.
If I may add something to that. Thank you for the question. That was a great question. It also speaks to the scaling of our dashboard. At first, we provide those data to farmers, but down the line, we can get data from them and then improve the dashboard, which is a critical problem when it comes to farming data. So this solution has incorporated the struggle that farmers face at the moment and how we move forward with that. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, my question is a little bit of a spin-off of what you've just explained, but I'm going to kind of summarize it this way. We may, as a board, have some middlemen as shareholders. And I guess after hearing that there's no harms created, I'm just curious, how do the middlemen, how are they going to feel about being eliminated and reduced, and where are they going to go in this process? It seems that the power in the market is with those middlemen now, and this would shift the control of the market to the farmers from the middlemen. Just can you just speak to how you thought about or considered that effect on the middlemen? Maybe it's a good thing that they don't have power, and that's where we're going from the ethical question. But in the reality of the implementation, how are they going to feel about being eliminated? I do. Before you answer the question, I just want to say this was extremely well prepared and an incredibly great presentation. We thank you for presenting to the board today.
Thank you. Do you want me to take? I can take it. So middlemen, as of now, are creating discrepancy in the market. So it is true they'll be affected, but with our ethic, the way we thought about ethic, we don't think them being affected is ethically wrong. The role that the middleman was playing in the role that the middleman is playing in the market actually causes farmers to take lower prices. And even themselves, I think they lose in that transaction because sometimes they can get these lower prices, but then down the line, farmer produce less because of lower prices. So if I have a farm, I'm producing, and every year I just lose on returns, I'm going to reduce my farm. But if I get more revenue, I can scale. Cocoa farmers own land. That's one thing that is general. Cocoa farmers own land. So by giving them incentive to increase, even these middlemen can, if they come with the right price, they'll still be able to continue their work. The cocoa industry, the chocolate industry is so huge that they will not be losing. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I would like to add something to that. If we go, Roger, can you take me to the slide where we talk of the finance and the infrastructure, and the next one? Yeah, in this slide, you see the normal process is production, the collection and transportation, then the buying and storage, then maybe the product which is exported or maybe used locally. But what happens actually is the farmers, when they produce, even the collection is not done by them sometimes. The middlemen do that. Now, there are cooperatives which have developed in Cameroon, like associations. They come as a group to like help reduce this middleman influence, but yet they don't still solve that problem because the middlemen, they still function as middlemen. They still like, they don't connect the farmers to the buyers directly. Ethically, this is not proper because they make the farmers to remain in poverty. touching on them actually offends them because they are going to be losing their jobs or they'll be losing their income, which they are making illegally. But how do we minimize the risks of these people coming to harm the whole system? Is with cooperating with Orange Cameroon, we feel these people can find other job avenues. The farming system will be more attractive, that these middlemen maybe would be interested to do farming because of the benefits that they will see farmers are getting from this cooperation with Orange. So I feel with this partnership, the hope is the farmers' life will improve and the middlemen will not see reason to be middlemen that much. So that's what I wanted to add to what the others had presented.
Thank you. I don't recall, I may have missed it, but are the cocoa farmers, is it the majority of them independent landowners that raise the cocoa? Are there any commercial farms that do that in Cameroon?
Okay, I can, so now speak from experience. So cocoa takes 5 years to start giving, to start producing cocoa. The 3 gifts take 5 years. So it, most of the time it doesn't make sense for independent, for corporation to basically rent land and do that. But what has been seen is that someone may own land and then because he doesn't have enough labor power, he can give his farm to someone to farm it, and the person will give him a specific return at the end of the year, something like that. So that's what is being seen, just because it's land. And also is the country does not, as far as I know, the country does not sell land to outside source easily. So you have to show some more what's the word for it? But basically it's hard to get land for just as a company. It's hard to get land. So mostly it's a landowner that farm cocoa.
I am from Cameroon too, with Saint Roger, and this is, I would say, this is kind of a cultural aspect which you are asking, because land in Cameroon is actually a representation of your identity. So people don't easily sell their land. So they prefer to farm their lands and they get this to the, so it is, we have plantations in Cameroon too, but these were created during the colonial period, where we had the Germans and the French. They opened good number of plantations in Cameroon, but they didn't open, they had banana plantations because that is like seasonal, but they didn't make any cocoa plantations because of the reasons that Saint Roger just explained. And when it comes to these local farmers, the ownership of land is really like representation of your identity. There are cultures which are so attached to cocoa farming that you cannot give their land to corporation that easily. You will also be violating their rights to land and not promoting this indigenous culture of which the SDGs do want to promote.
Thank you. Board members, yes.
Brian.
Yeah, question about the minimum price point that you guys mentioned. I think is it MSP or
Mhm.
in selling price maybe. Is if, I guess, how common is it that the cocoa is sold for below that price? Just from an ethical standpoint, if is that like a recommendation from the government, or is that supposed to be a law? And then how common is it that people are selling below that?
Okay, so it is a government decision. It's made depending on which international association you are in. That's how that decision is made. And it is pretty common that farmers get below that, very common, because region where cocoa grows are in really remote. They are pretty far from the city. So it's the buyers usually have some sort of monopoly. The middleman that comes in the region, he knows farmer personally, usually. So it just comes seasonally, and most of the time it's sold around December. And then when it comes with his truck, he buys as much as he can, and then he leaves. So farmers struggle. So that's the other reason why we want to tell them who, we want to send them by text, who is the nearest buyer. So they don't have to sell your cocoa to whoever shows up, because that's what it comes down to. Whoever shows up is going to be the one they're going to sell the cocoa to. But by knowing that Kaah Kahh, for example, which is one of the biggest buyer of cocoa in Cameroon, Kaah Kahh will send a buyer in the region next week. You don't have to sell to who comes, and you already know Kaah Kahh as an international buyer. You already know that Kaah Kahh as an international buyer will buy at least the minimum support price, which more if you have some cocoa certification. So, and this information will really be valuable to farmers, and it will not take long for them to spread the news for Orange Company to have more customers.
Just to add to that, I think that is actually why we are proposing this project, this cooperation with Orange, because the farmers are not informed, because they're in remote areas, they don't have this information. Most of these farmers are really ignorant on MSP. If we don't teach them about MSP, they will just sell their cocoa at the price that they feel can. Okay, if they keep the cocoa, they will not make use of it. It gets spoiled there. They don't have that control of their product. So that is why we are proposing this project, so that we can make them to be aware that, hey, what you are producing is really valuable. It's used worldwide. Many people consume it. So you can have a better life if you have this information. And that is what we are struggling to do. We intend to do in our partnership with. So people go, like Saint Roger explained, people go to these farmers directly because the farmers are ignorant. They don't know the MSP, they don't know the different price, the live price and other pricing mechanisms. So they just give their cocoa at giveaway prices, and which for them looks like they are doing something great, but they are actually not helping themselves.
And is the minimum selling price, is that something that moves daily, or is that more stable for, a certain longer period of time? Like, is the minimum selling price usually what it is for a month or a quarter or a year, or how often does that number change? Just trying to understand how often we might have to inform some people. If this is like an hourly changing number, then the dashboard makes a lot of sense. If this is a set number that only changes every quarter, perhaps we could just push a text message once a quarter to everybody that says this is the minimum selling price. But I guess that just depends on the nature of the minimum, because I get the market-based price, and you guys explained that really well. But I think from an ethical standpoint, and just like just getting to the how do we help the most people the quickest, I think if everybody could just be getting minimum selling price at least, and not below that, that might be solving one huge piece of the puzzle right there. So yeah, just help me understand how often can I expect that price to change? And
I can answer that. So, Brian, you identified and you also proposed something, which is what we are going after, and that is what we intend to do. An MSP is a government recommendation. To answer your previous question, it is not a law or regulation, it's a recommendation. It is not an hourly change that an MSP faces. It is more constant for a longer period of time, because that's the lowest that the government feels that happens. But in changing times, which is currently, it has been changing so much. Valerie showed you the graph of from 2022 to where 2023 is going. You can see, you can see the graph. It has been jumping, in terms of the pricing, and the pricing have been fluctuating. If they were stable, then the minimum support price would be stable, but it isn't. So it is changing, but it is not on a set period to as a government recommendation that it goes out at every quarter. No, it goes out when the government feels that the pricing are now reflective of the current scenario, and they send this out. The main issue is the middleman do not want these prices to get in hands of many things, which faces the ethical question that they posed. But to answer your previous question again, Brian, most of the people who are selling below the MSPs are going for the black markets, not the certifications. So in essentially enabling them to get certifications, in essentially enabling them to get the information of MSPs, we can just instantly make a difference in how they approach their selling. And as we can see that, it would be a really deep impact that we can create. And as you rightly mentioned, so yeah.
All right, we're going to have to wrap this part of it up. Thank you so much, everyone. Judges, great questions. Team, great presentation. So we'll take a step out of our role now and give our judges an opportunity to give you some feedback outside of the role of a director. And then if any questions you have of us, we'd be glad to answer them. So we kind of look at this. Jeremy, do you have any thoughts or comments or suggestions that you'd like to share with the team?
Extremely well done. You played to your individual strengths and backgrounds. I thought that was, even the matching backgrounds you have on the video. I mean, this was very well put together. The part of the competition involves the legal, financial, and ethical, the three solutions. I think a lot of our questions were around the same legal side of what they can and can't do, government, middlemen, maybe develop. I would suggest a slight development there to kind of preempt our questions. But other than that, what was presented and what was prepared, you obviously know the material. Really enjoyed this presentation, so thank you very much.
Brian?
I'm past 5 o'clock now, so I'm in daddy mode. So pardon the little one here. No, I thought it was wonderful. I learned a lot myself. I'm actually somebody who's in the market and procuring. I don't buy cocoa, but we buy cacao. I never am 100% sure on what the difference is there. We could talk about that later. But yeah, I'm familiar with some of these supply chains. I'm familiar with some of the issues that we always try to buy fair trade. We always try to do things on the front end to help with this problem. But a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about is way down the line. It's super interesting to me to kind of hear not just from the research that you guys put together, but also from the firsthand experience. I just thought it was phenomenally done, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you.
I echo our judges' comments as well. and just a well done presentation, well researched, well done. And as important was the topic you chose. Excuse me. This is something that is not only important, but really dealt with an issue that can improve the quality of life for people. And so just really well done. My only suggestion to you to think about, Jeremy kind of referenced it, is in the competition, we've got the three main categories. In the ethical part, this is rich of ethical issues that could be explored. The impact on, excuse me, farmers, the change in what they may do, the impact it has on the middlemen, things we talked about. So give that some consideration when you get into the 10-minute, 90-minute presentation, that given the fact that that's one of the major categories that we're looking at, you just kind of weave that in a little bit, because there's a richness here of ethical issues that can be surfaced, and it doesn't stop anything. It just says, we've looked at this, we understand it, and this is the impact, but we think this partnering has so much value to it that it's something that's worth doing. So in general, overall, well done, and we wish you the very best as you continue on with the competition. I want to thank our judges. I want to thank your advisor, and I want to thank all of you. I really enjoyed meeting all of you. I enjoyed listening to the presentation. You should be proud of it, and we wish you the very best as the days go on with the competition. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Do you
so
have any
much.
questions for us? Anything we can help with before we sign off?
I had a quick question, Brian. I'm going to put you on the spot here on this one. So you probably present to a lot of different clients and a lot of different medians, and I'm sure you probably have team calls like we did on this one. I'm curious to hear your perspective on the way that we presented, and then bouncing back and forth with questions. How do you do that when you're on calls with, let's say multiple team members that might have expertise in different areas? And then as far as like the flow of the presentation, the way that we were speaking and like the tone or the energy, like if in your experience, and I'm sure any of the other judges, if you have it, but Brian in particular, I know you do consulting and you own a food snack business. So what are you seeing in there that we can improve on?
I'll give you guys some advice that I get a lot, because I'm a wordy person, and I'm a salesperson, and I like to I'm verbose at times.
That word, we don't like that word, verbose.
Not saying anyone in particular was, but I'm actually in the middle of fundraising right now, and this is one of the reasons why I've gotten this feedback. When you answer a question,
yep,
just answer the question, and then if there's more to be asked from the investor or the board member or whoever, wait for that response. If you don't get that additional feedback, you can assume the question's been answered, right? And I think one thing that happened that is really challenging about this sort of forum is there's a tendency to jump in, like, hey, I can say this, hey, I can answer this, I can answer this. It's hard to know sometimes if the question's been answered, but one key indicator is if the judge doesn't ask the follow-up, your question's probably been answered. So maybe when you're in the competition, and the other thing I think it will help you guys do, because I think you guys are so well-researched, you have so much knowledge. I would have loved to talk more about the financials. We just ran out of time, right? So if you're to shorten some of these answers, you'll allow yourselves to have more time to talk about more things. I think for you guys, it's really going to pay off, because you have so much to say. And the more that questions can be answered, and then we can go through the legal and the ethical and the financial, the more that you guys are going to shine, and we're going to feel like judges, like we've hit all the buckets, and we feel comfortable giving you the highest marks. So that would be my only suggestion, is you get the pricing question that I asked for instance, answer the question, the first guy that does it, if you don't get a huge response from me and additional follow-up questions, you can assume that my question was answered. And you probably don't need 2 or 3 or 4 other people to jump in and continue answering that question. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It would be just from a strategic standpoint. Like, I think the more questions that can get asked to you guys, the better you're going to do, because I didn't get the sense that you couldn't answer any of my questions. I bet you could answer any of the questions that I were to ask. And the more that happens, the more I'm going to feel comfortable giving you guys high scores.
For sure, for sure. Jeremy, I'm curious, when you're working with other experts in the field, how do you deal with that based on their expertise level and given questions when you're on a consulting call like that? Do you just give the floor where you know, or, I mean, can you give us some more insights on that?
Yeah, I agree with Brian.
Jeremy, this is Bill. It's going to have to be quick because we have to sign off.
I agree with Brian that less is more.
We got
I would also
another
say,
question.
knowing how much prep work has been done, you know, how much review has been done ahead of time as opposed to an educational experience today. You can probably know that better from your audience, because you would know what they've read. You might get questions ahead of time, and there's multiple things involved with that.
For sure. We
But
can
yeah.
target it better when it's like that. I agree.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's easier to target in the real world.
Okay. So I just want to thank the judges for the good advice. And Brian, I can answer your question real quick. So cacao is when it's not processed at all, when it's just the bean, while cocoa is when it has started the process of becoming chocolate, of when he has been pre-processed. And
Right.
again, yeah, we always open questions.
And sometimes there's sugar with the cocoa, I think, or at some processing. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. But yes, thank you again, everyone. Thank you. This was really helpful.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Congratulations.
much.
Take care.